Dear Becky and Lizzie, woo! Did I steal your line? I'm sorry if I
No.
stole your line.
Good morning. Welcome to the Sun Dragon Sideshow, the Dear Becky and Lizzie edition.
She stole my line because I stole her line. Huh? Hi, I'm Rebecca. I don't have anything fancy knit on because it's hot outside.
So hot. I'm sweating under my mask.
Oh no. I'm Rebecca. I'm the owner of Sun Dragon Art and Fiber and going to be toasty today, Brevard, North Carolina.
I'm Liz. I'm the minion there. It is going to be so hot.
So sad, but it's especially laughy sad because it's going to be hot today. Okay.
So hot.
Okay. So, what are you doing?
I'm putting my
she has things happening over here. It is the Dear Becky and Lizzie edition. We hope you will watch the whole show. We only have a half hour because I had to go to the post office and I was running late. And are we surprised? No. And I had to do a little recording thing for my high school. Yay!
I was quiet.
Kind of,
but mostly.
Well, you were quiet enough. The microphone wouldn't have picked you up going through stuff over there.
I was trying to go through.
I hear everything
quietly as possible, and
that's when you don't go through anything.
Yeah, but
it's fine. This little guy, I don't think would have picked up the noise over there. It sounded fine. Anyway, I think it's fine. We'll find out. There's a big event. My high school choir conductor is retiring this weekend, and I can't go because it's White Squirrel Festival here this weekend. I'm not comfortable with crowds yet, so I was trying to do a recording for the concert. So do my bits. Woo! But since we only have like less than half an hour right now, I'm not gonna make you wait till the end. Anyone who watched yesterday's show already knows that that we hit 1,000 subscribers. We're actually at like 1,014. I'm the only one who can see the parsing of the teeny tiny numbers now. I think it says on our channel 1.01K. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it'll go up like 1.02 for 10, 20, and then So
tune in here if you want to know down to the person how our subscriber numbers are going. But we promised y'all a sale and it started today. People yesterday got a code that they had to wait till today to use. But here's the code to save 30% for 3 days. It's today, Friday, and Saturday. It ends Saturday the 4th, I think. So June 5th, this will no longer be active. If you're watching a different day. It is the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th of June is when you can save 30% in the online shop, or you can come in if you're local. But the code is, I almost said something different, Wahoo 1K. So that's WAHOO number 1 letter K. That's the code. So
we mixed it up.
Yeah, not that it's mixed up from something, We decided not to go with the usual standard formula because this is a big one. Hitting 1,000 subscribers is really, really cool. And it works because a couple people have already used it. So we know it's functional. Yes. Anyway, so that's exciting and fun and yay. And you just have all this stuff. Oh, you're starting let me see. If you don't mind me holding up your copy. Oh no, I have a copy right here. Your copy's all bent already.
I know, because I shoved it in my zombie bag.
So, we got, again, let's get the business stuff out of the way, and then we're gonna get to our questions. So, this is the 10th anniversary Pom-Pom. I'm looking around for another Pom-Pom. It's up there. I'm not gonna. It's a little bit bigger on each side. Yeah, a half inch to 3/4 to an inch or something bigger in both directions from old Pom-Pom. It's their 10th anniversary edition. I don't know if this is the new format or this is just for this edition, but it's got 2 entry points. So what Liz has, there's 2 covers, but yes, if you just try to flip it like this, it's upside down. Look at that synchronized. What is up with that? So whoop, and that means if you go through, it's right side up, it's right side up. Oh, look, at some point it's upside down, but that's if you enter from this side. So the deal with this, we have, let's see, I think we have 5 copies left because we only get 8 copies at a time. So it's online right now if you want to get it. and we will try to get more in if we run out. The thing with the 30% off sale, it's whatever we have right now. It doesn't apply to pre-orders. There's very little chance in 3 days we can restock anything. So it's what we have in stock right now. But what they did with this one, so it's a quarterly, so they publish for a year, and it's usually seasonal. But for this one, they have all 4 seasons represented in some way. Like if you come in from this side, from the really cool granny square top side, it's the spring and summer side. So it will have things in it more appropriate, perhaps for spring or summer. And if you come at it from this side, the back side, it's the autumn winter side. So it will have warmer patterns in it. So
which is what I'm starting.
Which is, she's making this big gingham checkerboard plaid mohair thing.
It's mohair in Antarctica.
What's it? It's called the
Keswick.
It depends on where you live, how you pronounce it. I have learned. There in Philly, there's the Keswick Theater. So the way it's spelled, I think Keswick. Jan from the UK has informed us that it's Keswick if you are in the UK, which is where this originated, this name. So and the Pom-Pom is a British publication, so they might call it the Keswick something or other. Yeah. Keswick. There's a W in there for spelling purposes. So use phonetics. I used to be a joke with my friends in college. Anyway, so she's starting this behemoth that she's of course going to make bigger. So yeah, anyway.
Because why it called for a size 9 needle.
It's she doesn't even know what to say.
I can't keep it on just a size 9 needle.
I had a thought of like starting the episode with my socks on, because I have 2 completed socks. They're different socks that I might put them on while we're talking, just show them off to y'all. I wasn't gonna slip around on the floor, and we were running late, so we have questions for Dear Becky and Lizzie. That's what we're supposed to be focusing on today. And I'll hold these up later or show you what they look like on my feet later. So yeah, what we got?
Dear Becky and Liz, I would love to join you on the sock knit along, but I only made socks once, so not sure what pattern to use yet. My question is for people like me that have funky feet, aka big bunions, large big toes. Is there any way to reinforce those parts or to make the sock to shape better? The ones I made fit great for a day, and then the stitches around the bunion got so stretched it was not pretty. Thanks for any suggestions. Your friend, the Bigfoot.
Okay, disclaimer on all sock conversations moving forward, that yes, we are doing a sock knit along. No, we are not sock experts. Have you finished any pairs of socks? One pair of socks. I have done like 1.5. No, okay. For myself, I've done like 1.5 pairs. I knit a whole bunch of worsted weight ones for my family. And then I've done a few other pairs of the small size. So I'm decent at following sock patterns. Like here's another sock I've made. But that does not mean we're experts. So we could theorize on quite a few things.
A lot of things we've heard.
We can share what we've heard. Have we tested it? No. So that's the disclaimer before we move forward on this conversation. As not to put you on the spot, Liz, but as someone who has kind of funky feet yourself.
I do.
Like, what do you think you would try? Like I have maybe thoughts, but I'm not really sure.
I would probably do some of the reinforcing thread.
Okay, so the reinforcing thread, which we do not sell, but do we know where to get that?
I will give you the Etsy shop that I've found it. It's like cobweb weight.
I'll try to put it in the description, a link to where you can find. So it's cobweb weight. So it's really thin, but it's like elastic, right?
It's lycra.
Okay. Yeah. And so what I'm taking away from what you're saying is for someone, go ahead.
Add reinforcing.
What does that mean? I know what I think it means. Let's see what
it's an extra bit of.
Yes, but how do you add reinforcing?
You hold it with your yarn to give it more either elasticity or structure in specific areas that you're going to need it.
And it's often used
for toes and heels.
I'm like, fill in the blank, Liz. I'm trying not to talk the whole time. Aren't y'all proud of me?
The other thing I have heard,
Mm-hmm.
shout out to Carol, and it's more figure it out as you go.
Mm-hmm.
Like for her mom has funky sided feet. And
Mm-hmm.
so she has figured out how to make socks that fit her feet perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a trial and
It took
error.
time.
Yeah.
All I can think while you're answering this question is you talk with your hands too.
I do. And that's why
okay.
I have to
turn back over to me.
struggle.
So that's why you have to stop
Right,
when you're everybody should do that. It's, you think better. I can't do two things at once anymore. So yeah, I was gonna say the same thing is like, so this person who's writing in, if you've got a bunion somewhere or you have a pair of socks where it's already wearing or stretching out, that's the spot, like mark that spot. And when you're making your next pair of socks, when you get to that spot, that's where you want to hold the reinforcing thread with what you're knitting. Or, I mean, you could try
reinforce the whole foot.
Yeah, I was about to say, you could try reinforcing the whole foot and see if that helps. There is, I think what Carol, I don't know if Carol's done this, but like bouncing off her idea of she's learned where it's funky on her mom's feet, is you could try something like actual shaping there with increases or decreases. This is going to apply to potentially one of our other questions today, maybe. Kind of like putting in darts when you're doing things for big chested people in sweaters. But again, that's going to be trial and error. And we don't have a magical, like, here's what you do. But it could be just making your sock a little bigger and then narrowing it back down again. Like that's one of the benefits, especially of toe up socks. You try them on as you go. If you're knitting for yourself, you can even do the same with cuff down. Just got to make sure you've got room on whatever needles you're using for it to stretch and get around your foot.
I would recommend something that you can try on, like my gauntlets that I made. I made them on double points, and I had a pattern, but I lengthened the pattern. So every time I tried them on, it was, do I need to take away a stitch? Do I need to add a stitch? Like I just kept trying them on till
anything you need to modify like that.
Custom built.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a lot of try on as you go and err on the side of try it on more often than less often.
Yeah.
Like with these, I only tried on certain places because I kind of know they're going to fit, hopefully, but figuring out when to do the heel turn. If you're doing something where you need to find the spot to start the heel, it tends to be 1.5 inches to 2 inches before you reach the end of your foot or before you reach your heel or something like that. And I did that with this one. The instructions on the Rose City rollers say stop a certain number of inches or like when you're at your pinky toe. Now the question is tip of your pinky toe, beginning of your pinky toe. That could depend on you because your pinky toe might be really long. Or other people's pinky toes are really stubby. So the distance between your pinky toe and the toe that sticks out the furthest, which might not be the big toe, that like this one is nice, but I might have wanted to start the toe decrease a little sooner. And I only know that by, for the most part, by making one and saying, okay, now I know what to do with the next one. There is something to be said for if you really measure your foot, draw it out, that kind of thing, and take measurements. And when it says 2 inches before, you really make sure it's 2 inches before instead of, oh, that looks kind of good. But then again, your row gauge might be different than the pattern writer's row gauge. And sometimes with needles this small, it doesn't make a difference. And sometimes it's a huge difference in how it feels on your foot. We had someone in yesterday who said, well, I made socks on 3s and I think I need to make them on smaller needles. I don't like the way that the stitches feel. And my first sock I made on 1s or 2s, and they're the ones I was wearing yesterday. And I made those and said, these are great, but I can still kind of feel the stitches. And if you don't like that, go smaller. I might still feel the stitches on all the 0 ones I'm making, but 0s have become, I'm making these, I keep not finishing my sentences, apologies. I'm making these mostly on one of the needles the pattern calls for so people can see the difference Again, everybody's tension is different. So that doesn't guarantee that if you knit on a 1.5, a US 1.5, it's going to look like this. It could look different, tighter or looser. But the smaller you can go, the tighter your stitches are. It might make the sock feel less soft on your foot, but it will last longer because the stitch definition will put up with more wear and tear. That's the theory, right? And the smallest fixed needle we sell in the shop is a 0. They go down to a 000 in terms of what we can order. And you've seen on labels that they go down further than that on really teeny tiny yarn. It represents even teeny tinier needles.
A 40 needle is 1 whole millimeter smaller than a size 1.
Okay. And a 0 is, let me see. Can I read this? It's, hang on. I got to find one of these that has the actual millimeters on it. It's so small, but it's printed on there. Ooh, a 0 is a 2 millimeter. So you said a quadruple 0 is 1 millimeter smaller than a 1. So a 1 is a 2.25 millimeter. I think they change by 0.5 millimeters. So it's small. I wouldn't get any, like, if you get anything smaller than like a 2 in a wooden needle, be careful because there's a good chance it'll break. And that is not necessarily, does not mean they're cheap needles. It means you're knitting with toothpicks. And sometimes with enough pressure that will break no matter what. So what's next?
Next.
How many do you have to cast on?
168.
Just casting on with mohair.
Texas long.
Okay, what's next?
The next one was a comment on our sideshow. I think it was Dear Becky and Lizzie last week, and it's, what is your recipe for neat edges when knitting flat? Query from New Zealand.
So we're doing these in, I think maybe the order they came in ish. But we are also, so we're bouncing back and forth. This is not about socks necessarily. It could apply to the heel flap because that is kind of the classic heel flap uses what I would probably say for, why is that? Oh, I was like, why is there like a play button on your phone? It's just looking at, never mind. I'm easily distracted.
I took screenshots to where it was easier to find all of them.
Okay. So neat edges when knitting flat. Now, there's a couple things I would address within this idea of neat edges knitting flat. If you just want a smooth edge when you look at it, I slip the first stitch, right? Like that's a way, like whether you're knitting or purling or going across, if you slip the first stitch and if the yarn is hanging in front, because say you were knitting across and you flipped it around and the yarn's in your face right now when you're holding it, I slip the first stitch over and then move the yarn to the back to not have added quirkiness. If the yarn's already hanging in back, I just slip the stitch and let the yarn stay where it is and move it to whatever I need to do, knit or purl. That gives you a nice edge. And that's what a traditional heel flap will do. And it'll give you elongated V's of the knit stitches along the edge instead of the bumps that you'd get with garter if you like knit and then started knitting again. Or even if you knit and purled, they're tighter and they're not necessarily as uniform. So slipping the first stitch on any edge will make it cleaner. But if you want a nice edge that lays flat, that is not like unless you're knitting garter, which is knitting every row. Your piece, if you're knitting a row and purling a row, because I don't know what that person's asking about. If you knit a row and purl a row, it's called stockinette, where you have all of your V's on one side. I'm like looking for, I don't necessarily have an example of that. If there was no edge on this one, like this has lace in it, but the side that you can see is all the V's. And then the back side has all the bumps. If this had no border on it, it would curl. Stockinette by its very nature curls. When people they post on Knit and Chat and they're like, what do I do? It's like, there's no solution if you've already started that way. Even if you're slipping the edge stitch, it still wants to curl in on itself, and it would want to curl up at the bottom if it's just knit a row, purl a row. Because that's the nature of stockinette. You can block it and it'll look nice when it's blocked, and you take it off the blocking mats and it'll be like, we may not curl as much, we're still gonna go.
Yeah.
So this has, and it still, see, look, it still flops under. I can still pull it out. This has a garter edge to the stockinette fabric in the middle, and that is one solution to having it lay flat. But the thinner the garter edge is, and that means like every row you're knitting 4 or 5 stitches, and then you're going onto your purls on the wrong side. The thinner your stockinette edge, the thinner your garter edge is, the more likely it's still going to curl. If the majority of the middle of it is still stockinette, that is going to overpower the garter edges at some point, especially if you don't block it.
So sometimes your garter edge will
it'll just be like, we'll fold in, yay!
We'll stay flat for the garter.
We'll stay flat from the inside.
We're gonna fold in.
The same thing at the bottom, like the bottom of this. A lot of baby blankets and things will have a garter edge to them. Now, again, if the blanket is huge and there's a little bitty garter edge out there, is it pretty? It might fold in. It might still want to curl up. That doesn't mean that, half of your piece has to be garter and then this little strip of detail in the center, but it's more challenging. Like this piece, this shawl is entirely garter and it's flat. It's not curling up because you have the stitches kind of going back and forth and evening themselves out. So that's another way to have a nice edge, is to have some kind of patterning on the edge that is a mixture of knits and purls. Like garter, since you're knitting every row, what you look at from the front looks like knits and purls stacked on top of each other for knitting flat. Another solution could be to do some seed stitch, maybe some ribbing. That's where the knits and purls stack. That could keep it even on the edges. Seed stitch is where you have knit, purl, and then the row above it is the opposite. So it's almost like a mini basket weave. All of those are things that could help flatten your edges if that is what your question is about. But if you just want a clean edge, regardless of what's happening in the middle, like even with garter, this does not have a slip stitch edge, and I think it's uniform and pretty, but if you don't like the little bumps of the purl stitches sticking out on the edge, if you slip the first stitch on every row, you get a cleaner edge. That's what I do on my papillons. I slip the first stitch. It doesn't tell you to do that. It says you could if you wanted to, but it doesn't tell you to do that. But that is what I do to have a clean edge. Some people will go on the papillon and add an I-cord around the whole entire thing. And I'm just like, I don't know why, personally, for me. Because a slip stitch edge has a clean look to it. It's only if you want a decorative rounded edge. Because that is actually...
I don't even bother with an edge. I'm just like...
that is another thing you can do. I don't think I have a sample here to show you. A lot of shawls have started to have a clean edge on them. They've done an I-cord edging as you go, which means I believe it's you end every row, move your, like 3 stitches before the end, move your yarn to the front and slip the last 3 stitches. So that when you turn it around, your yarn is 3 stitches in, but you start at the edge and it makes it curl around.
Yeah.
So that's a more complicated way to have a pretty edging if you have the stitches available. On every row, 3 stitches before the end, move the yarn to the front, slip those last 3 stitches unworked, turn it around, and then forget that the yarn's in a weird place and just start knitting those 3 stitches. It'll give you a rounded knit edge, which can be really nice and not super, super bulky. It's a little thicker, but it can look kind of nice. So those are options. There is just slipping your first stitch on every row, clean line, won't keep it from curling. There is doing some kind of texture on the edge to keep it from curling if it's something that has been curling on you. The I-cord edging is not necessarily going to keep it from curling, but you can experiment with that. So, all right, what else do we have? We have, hopefully, we can Well, I remember what the last one is. Go ahead.
You are amazing with information knowledge. I have a question. I knit my socks 60 stitches, but I have a large calf. How do I adjust my socks to fit? I do my sock toe up, but I want to do top down, but I really don't know how much to cast on.
And we were talking about this at the table yesterday when we noticed that comment. And first thing off the bat is to adjust for a calf. There's conventional wisdom that sometimes when a sock sags and doesn't stay up on your calf, people think it's because it's too loose, but actually, or because it's too tight, but actually it's because it's too loose. So there's this gray area between wanting more elasticity in your cuff, but not making it bigger, versus if it's cutting off your circulation, then you do need to make it bigger. So I have a couple of things. Again, we haven't really tried this. A couple of things I would say is I would do some kind of knit purl combo. I would do ribbing for the whole cuff, first of all, to have the elasticity to expand where your calf is bigger. And that can be knit one, purl one. Or I would do something like, I saw somewhere a knit 3 purl one can give you the same elasticity, but show off a patterned yarn better. I wouldn't do knit 2 purl 2 because that doesn't have a lot of elasticity in it. The other thing is, if you do need to expand, if you need it to be bigger around because of your calves than your foot, which I think is what you're talking about with the 60. There's all kinds of, there's 64, there's 60 stitches, there's 56, that's going to change depending on your foot basically and your gauge. But if it really does need to expand, I say you got to do some trial and error. And if you're used to toe up, do it on a pair of toe up socks first.
Yeah.
Where try it on and say, okay, I need a little bit more here. And I wouldn't increase too many stitches at a time. I would maybe 4 as you go around, like keep it minimal. And once you figure out a fit, that what maybe you're increasing once or twice throughout the whole thing. And then you might have to figure out, if you're doing ribbing the whole way up, your added stitches, you have to figure out if your ribbing's just getting a little wider, like how you're incorporating that to keep it ribbing.
If you're doing cuff up or cuff down or toe up, and you're not changing needle sizes, depending on
you could change needle sizes.
If it's a plain vanilla pattern, it should be the same amount of stitches for the cuff on both socks, theoretically.
I'm waiting to see where you're going with this. Go ahead.
So if you do a toe up and you use 60 stitches, but you're not going as far up as, like, if you're doing a knee high, you're going to have to be bigger for the calf.
Yeah.
Like mine, I can't wear boots that are, over my calf because they're too tight. So I'd just make a shorter cuff.
That's okay. So option 1, shorter cuff. And have it stop where your calf expands to the point where it doesn't fit anymore. Definitely. Okay. Option 2, I would experiment with your toe up and see if you want to try adding stitches in, how big it gets to comfortably fit on your calf. Then you know what number of stitches you need to cast on for a cuff down, and roughly where to decrease as well on a cuff down, if that one is a little more challenging to try on, right? And something to consider adding into any option is ribbing for the whole cuff, not just for the top, but like maybe an inch above your heel turn, or do it until about an inch before you're going to turn coming down. Keep it all ribbing for elasticity. And whatever option we're on, is potentially, as you go up or start at the top and go down, switch needle sizes to give you a little more room in there. So it could be, again, I would practice with your toe up first to get an idea before you start a cuff down, where at a certain point you go up from a 1 to a 1.5 and then to a 2, and see if that you can keep the needle number, the stitch number the same, but have some more room in there. A lot of sock knitting is trial and error. Yeah. There's not like a magic, do this and your socks will fit on the first try. If it happens, it's usually a happy accident. So that's what makes it challenging to knit socks for other people, is you have to guess off of their shoe size what's going to fit, and you hope it's going to fit. So I have both of these socks
Are new.
are new and a little loose, but yeah, I'm trying to.
And some of that's just trying to
And
gauge in your foot.
And this one goes up. See, this one goes up, but it's already falling down. But my other socks don't really stay up either. And this one's an anklet. And I'll show them more off next week. Rose City Rollers is the pink one. Mina's vanilla sock recipe is the green and red one. I want to say, just feeling them on my feet, Mina's fits better. Rose City Rollers, I think I did either the smaller, the medium size. I cast on like 64 for Rose City Rollers on a 1, and I cast on 56 for the Mina's vanilla sock on a 1.5. So I think all of these smaller sizes on, this might have been the smallest size on the Mina's was the 64. So again, trial and error. And I think all of these on a 0 might be lovely. I'll still wear the ones I made, regardless of how well they fit, especially if they're in shoes. Hopefully that's the next test. Hopefully they stay put. But we need to go open the shop. And reminder, the special secret code is Wahoo 1K, WAHOO number 1, letter K. And that only works through the end of the day, Saturday. And I have no idea what time zone it will cut off, if it will wait until Western time zone or if it's all Eastern time zone. I have no idea. I'm not in control of that. But so order early, order often. Yay! And right? Why is that so funny? Didn't you say that yesterday?
I did. I told Carol that. Shop early, shop often.
Right. So we are off camera until next Tuesday, but you can see us tomorrow night for Sit and Stitch on Zoom if you're not local. And that is with the shop phone number to get into a meeting.
828-877-3550.
And we are, right now we have drop and help time we have to go get ready for, if anyone shows up. And then we have people already, so we have to go. We have in-person Sit and Stitch on Saturday afternoon, if you can make it through the White Squirrel crowds, 1 to 4 p.m. Bye.